Welcome to What's New in CAM for Fusion 360, and I actually don't know how many episodes we're going to need to cover all the What's New in CAM. I counted up to about 10 of new functions and I've just kind of stopped. Those developers are hustling. But as many of you guys know, I have been on a 12-month break from Fusion 360, and this is a chance to catch up on all this good stuff that the developers are working on. But we're going to slow down, we're going to take it easy, make sure no man and woman is left behind. So, with that, let's go ahead and cam it up. Hello everyone, my name is Lars Christensen and thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Like I said, this is a chance to catch up on all the great stuff that the development team have been working on. If you like this video, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, that's okay. Give it a thumbs down, leave me a comment, and I have also added down in the description area a new way you and I can connect via email. So if you want to share something you've been working on, maybe I can help answer a question, maybe not, just want to introduce yourself, feel free to do that. With that, let's get into some of the cool things with CAM. So we are going to start with a blank screen, but one thing I wanted to show you, if you didn't know, if you go over to your data panel over here, show your data panel, and you go all the way out to all your projects, did you know, maybe you did, but have kind of forgotten that there's all different kinds of things in here, include a huge CAM sample library. If you double click on that, you'll get all different kinds of different models you can go in and look at in here. One of the ones I'm going to use today is the Haas demos. So these files here are actually, I don't know for sure, but I think most of these are programmed either by my good friend Tim Paul or my good friend Andrew Juris. If not, then somebody leave a comment. But I think those two guys have programmed most of these. So let's just open one of these up here. So I'm going to open this bottle opener that was, you can see it was programmed in a VF2 for Haas. And the cool thing about these models is the toolpaths are in here. So you can actually go in and see how these master machinists would have programmed this. So it's an easy way to go in and kind of steal some knowledge from these guys here. All right, I'm just going to open up here in Fusion and minimize the data panel. You will see here we have this really cool bottle opener that I think we maybe ran at Autodesk University. And you will see again, like I said before, all the different tool paths are in here. So there's the soft jaws here with all the tool paths. There's the first and the second op, because you can kind of see that the way this was set up is it's machining one side here and then it machines the other side. That brings up one of the new functions. Actually, I'm going to show you two different functions that I think is absolutely awesome. Let me just, I think maybe make it easier. I'm going to go back out to the design here, and we have the bottle opener here. I'm just going to right click on it. I'm going to say isolate, kind of like just open that one up. And if I go back into the manufacturing workspace here, you will see that now we have kind of isolated all the other parts here, and we kind of can just see these two by itself. Now I'm going to show you another trick a little bit later in the end of this video that makes all this maybe not needed. But I think also I'm just going to change, this perspective with autofacers, that's my favorite here. Now this function that I'm going to show you here, these next two functions are under inspect up here. It is accessibility analysis, hard for me to say, and minimum radius analysis. Oof, maybe I shouldn't make videos on a Sunday afternoon. I can't speak. These two functions, man, I would have paid money when I used to work at Ridlam to have these two, especially if you ever quote parts. You get some model from a customer, and now they're just asking for a quote. We want, how much it's going to cost to make 10 of these, 100 of these, or 10,000 of these. And you're going in there and you're looking at these models and you're trying to figure out, you're trying to kind of wrap your head around what this is going to take to make this part. We're going to do the first one here, accessibility analysis. If I click on that, we get the little menu over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the body. So I'm going to select the body here. And then you're going to select the direction. I'm going to click on that. And for the direction, I'm just going to select, in this case, a vertical edge. It could be this edge, it could be this, doesn't really matter, just a vertical edge here. And then you will see that we get a color code on it. Now you can flip the direction here. I'm probably going to flip it this direction. But what it will show us is from that direction, you look at that little arrow right here, from that direction, what can we actually reach on a vertical mill? And we're not, like you can see, we can't reach the bottom. That makes sense. But look at this. Of course, on this bottle opener, there is an undercut here, right? And like when you're trying to quote a part, knowing that, oh, I'm going to have to do something in here is absolutely critical. And I have for sure tried in my professional career when I actually made money on machining parts, made that hiccup where you suddenly realize there was some feature that you had not seen, that you couldn't reach. It could be draft or something like that. So this accessibility feature where you can see these undercut, that is absolutely wonderful. Again, it is found in the manufacturing workspace under Inspect, Accessibility Analysis. Now the other one is, this one, and it's just, these developers are just smart, right? Because I think all they did was kind of take the knowledge we have from something like draft analysis and made it into manufacturing. But minimum radius analysis, I think you know what this is. If I select that, and I select my maximum tool radius, and if I'm going in, now this is in inches, if I'm going in here, maybe I'll say, you know what, I'll go in with a quarter inch, so 0.25 inch cutter is, maybe something that most people would have. Now what happens over here in the scroll bar afterwards is that you can see as I come to a certain size, I get red on the screen. So now you can look at this little recorder here and we can look for when we start seeing red. Oh, right there. So if you look here, 139. So if we go in and look here, there's red here and there's red on these internal corners in here. Well, 139. Maybe at this point I'm just going to go in here and type in, what if I went in with an 1/8 inch cutter? Oops, 1/8 inch cutter. All right, an 1/8 inch cutter will actually clean up these areas. But if I went in with something bigger, 0.135, then I know that I will not clean up these areas. So this just is a great way to kind of find these instead of what I would normally do is let me just cancel out of this analysis for a second. What I would normally be doing is I would be sitting here and I would click on this edge here, and then I would look down here and say, oh, okay, down here in the lower right, that's okay, and an 1/8 inch can get in there, so that's good. And then I would be sitting here searching around and be like, there might be an internal corner in here. What is this corner? Oh, that's 1.3, right? Like you would sit here and you would try, and this part is not, you have definitely tried more complex part like this. But the fact that just out of the box, I can go in here, minimum radius, I can set whatever I want here, and I can start open up this slider, and it's going to show me. Now I have multiple analysis, turn the accessibility off. Select this, and now I can sit here and I can say, oh, I have an issue right here, and I can get that number right out of there. Woo! That to me is worth a heck of a lot. All right, let's go back out to the design, and I'm just going to right click on bottle here, and I'm going to unisolate. That gets everything back the way this is. All right, we're going back to this model here a little bit later. Let's but that was two things that I think, that is awesome. Let's go into some turning here. So I'm going to double click on this oil drain plug again. Tim, Paul, Angelo. I'm giving you guys credit for these. I hope you guys have done this. I should have maybe done some research on that. A couple of things that I think is worth to know in turning that is really cool. So let's go up here on the menu and click on the turning drop down. A couple of things they've done. One is if you hit the drop down for turning, they have split up turning profile. So there's a turning profile roughing and a turning profile finishing. Now this used to just be one operation where you could you would just kind of like use the same operation for either or. But they split it up because by splitting it up, they kind of got an opportunity to streamline some of the different menus in here. And you could, now it's easier to use 2 different tools and kind of keep it organized. So one thing here, if we go into the turning profile roughing, you kind of want to rough out the profile of this part here. One thing I want to point out, so let's go in here to the passes tab. Be aware of that you can now actually add canned cycles. Now your posts need to be able to support canned cycles, but you could now do like the roughing with canned cycles. I know many people who are using lathes will use canned cycle for roughing. Another thing that I want to point out that was added in here is like something like tangential extension, so you can actually bring the tool path forward or backward. Actually, these tool tips that comes out here are super good for that. If we just hover over and these comes out here, so you can kind of see how that works. And you can now add these different tangentials operations in there. That, I think, is pretty cool. Another thing I really like that they have done is, let's take this profile number 1 and let's go and simulate it. And I'm just going to go and let's just see here, come in here. Let's go and look at it from straight on like this here. Zoom in here a little bit. So we have this this cutter, this lathe cutter, and we can kind of going back and forth there. Did you know that if you hold down your left mouse button, and hold down the left mouse button, you can actually drag back and forth. And you can, I'm just holding down the left mouse button, you can drag back and forth. This is super nice when you're coming in and you just really want to see what you're doing. But you can actually do better with this, because there is now also a program point in the simulation for turning. If you turn that on, look at this. You get a little point here that shows you where this is programmed at. So in this case here, let me just go to the next pass here. This case here, we have a radius insert, but that's actually not the program point. The program point is the tip here. So this can be super helpful, especially if you go, also if you're programming like internal and stuff like that. So that's that little program point there. It just gives you kind of an idea about exactly where you are programming to. That is a nice function. Another thing that has been added, what I think a lot of turn people have requested, is if you're going to do a facing operation, just a facing operation here, if you go into your passes tab, there is now an option for reduced feed. So you can go in here, you check this one, and pretty much what it means is that when you get to a certain distance, your feed will change. So that has been a request. Reduce feed radius, and then you can reduce the feed down to that point. So as you're facing in, it will reduce the feed rate going in there. Another nice thing. The last thing that I want to show with turning before we jump back to milling is that in this case, if you look at this part here, I just added a couple of operations, but there's a parting operation, right? And that just means that we machine, and you can go, you have this model and this tool path, so you can go in and analyze all this if you want to. But we have here in the parting operation where we cut the part off, right? Nothing. I don't think anybody is too who have done a lathe too confused about that. We can cut this part off, and then it falls down, and ready for the next part. Well, maybe you wanted to maybe rough that cut in. Maybe there was a feature here you wanted to finish, or maybe you just wanted to kind of like take some of the stress off before you're doing a parting operation. For example, I have tried where this tool deflects as you are parting off. You might get a little bit of a groove on it, but if you could remove some of that material first, that could be neat. So what they have done is if you go in and you do something like a single groove operation, so let me do that. And we're going to leave the same tool, go in here and select our grooving position. So I'm going to select this line here. And right now, if I just hit OK, you will see that it's going to groove right in the center. That's not what we want. So let's go back into that single groove again, edit. And you will see many times when I do cam, this is how I do it. I select my toolpath, I select the area I want to machine, and then I hit OK and see what I get. Instead of trying to go in and change too many things, and then many times if you still don't get what you want, it's harder to find out what you changed. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to change this to the back side. That will move that over a little bit there. And you'll also see that it only goes to this point here. Go to the next tab here. It's probably the inner radius. I'm going to select that to model ID. That will take it all the way into the center, I believe. So now if we go and simulate that, let's just take a look. Now we pretty much have a cutoff operation used with a single groove. Well, what is new with a single groove that you can do is if we right click and we hit edit and we go to the passes tab. Now there's always been a stock to leave, but it was only radial. So you could add in here and say, I want it to be 250, so leave a little bit of material, right? So now it's only going to go there. It's not going all the way to the center. But what is new is that you can now also do a actual stock to leave. So you could add, 50,000s on that. So, and then we can take this, we could drag it all the way up and put it right before the potting operation. So now when it comes in, hold down Control, select these two operations. So now we will first come in with our groove operation. We'll move all the material there. And then the potting operation, because it now only have 50,000s, might not deflect as much. And that just takes the last piece there. Super cool. So turning have gotten all kinds of different features. And again, like I just took out, a handful. We already had 6 features here. So a lot of stuff going on in here. Let's go back to our bottle opener we had before here. So another thing that you will see that the guys did, if we go into our manufacture workspace, just let that open up here. One of the things that, I don't know, again, I'm giving credit to Tim Paul and Angelo, is that they have left comments on these soft jaws. But it's something that, when you're rushing through and trying to get a pot up and running, and you gotta just make pots. You're making money on the pots. You're not making money on making fixtures and other stuff. But I have always taken the time to engrave things, because when you come back 6 months later and gotta run more pots, this is super handy. Now, what they have added, we have an engraving operation here. What they have added in this new, or the last 12 months, is if you go to your passes tab, you now can insert multiple depths right in here. So now when you're engraving, you don't have to do it just in one depth, but you can actually do it in multiple depths. That is super awesome. All right, now I'm going to show you some things that I think really, again, I really applaud the development team for the work. I think, again, like these two up here, accessibility analysis and minimum radius analysis, those I would have died to have when I was at Ritlam and doing, trying to quote parts. These next things I would have loved when it comes to working with bigger assemblies. So I'm going to go back out to our data panel, and there's another assembly here that I'm going to open up for you, and that's tombstone machining. And I used to do a lot of tombstone machining, and I know some of you guys out there are doing plenty of that too. And one of the things that I don't know, like I have worked and designed pretty big assemblies in the past and worked with big assemblies in the past from a design aspect. But as soon as you're in a CAM workspace and you start working with assemblies, it really, because mentally you have the toolpath in there, you have the part sitting there, working with these bigger assemblies can be really tricky. Now, if we just look quickly, again, the toolpaths are in here to machine these parts. Let me just minimize some of it here. We have operation 1 and we have an operation 2 in here. But we not only here in the manufacturing workspace have, the parts with the toolpath, we also are looking at the models. One of the things that have been added in here, and the models are sitting over here, we can hit the drop down and we can see kind of the hierarchy, right, of all the different assemblies. There's some parts here, and then there's a sub-assembly here. We can expand that, and there's even more parts. Sometimes when you're working in here, this can actually get, trying to keep this straight it just can add to the confusion. Here's a cool thing that they have brought in from the design workspace to the manufacturing workspace. That's selection sets. Now, if you're not familiar with selection sets, like I said, it's already in the design workspace. You can right-click on the top model here, and you say create a selection set. And when you do that, you get a folder that says selection set. Now, what is this? Well, selection sets gives you an option to group together things that you maybe would keep on selecting on a part. So if we're looking at this tree here, here is a part that is sitting in the vise, and then it looks like there's also 4 other ones of them, right? Like I can select them here, and they're sitting, maybe this is operation 1 or something like that, right? Of the part for this tombstone. So what I can do when I have these selected, I can go up, and you can either hit select. I'm not going to click that. I'm going to click update. Now, when I click update, you will see that this number says selection set 1. There's a number in a bracket. That's going to be 4, and that's going to be our 4 selections. Okay? That means that any time I can now click on selection set, and if I click on that selection set and click select, I would have selected those 4. Now, this maybe only makes real sense when I'm now going to go ahead and create another selection set. I'm going to get a new selection set. So actually we can rename these. So let's go ahead here and right click here and say we call this setup 1. Or operation 1 is probably what I would actually call it. Operation 1. That is, when I click here, those 4 parts. Operation 2. Slow left click. Operation 2. Now I don't have anything in here right now. So we can go ahead and we can find those, and they're probably in this sub-assembly down here. So now we're going to find them. So there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, and one here. See how I'm like hunting for them to try to find them, right? Now I can just go up here, up to our operation 2, and update this. And now I can minimize all these different operations, all this silly stuff. And now I'm working with my programs, and now I can just go in, and if I click over here, I have selected operation 1, and if I click over here, I've selected operation 2. That's selection sets. This is also super good if you're working in assemblies where you can work with that. The next thing is something that is pretty dang cool, but again, with, what does it say? With great power comes great responsibility. Down in the bottom, you will see that you got some new buttons down here that you may have not noticed on. There's one of them here. If I click on this one that has like 2 arrows in a circle, you will see that right now I have them turned off. Now, I'm not going to turn them on right now. I'm going to just wait a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of new setups. So, if we look at operation 1 here, if I click at that, you will see that we get a G54, or the 00 of this tombstone. The way they programmed that is sitting right here. And if you click on operation 2, it's the same place. Now, when I was at Ridlam, I kind of did the same thing. The difference for me was I actually placed my y-axis down here. So I would have had it down here on the tombstone. That meant I could take this whole thing of the palette, and I would still have my G54 in the center of rotation. This is the ultimate thing, but I know many of you guys will tell me that We don't always live in the perfect world. And sometimes we actually do the setups on the parts themselves. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new setup. And we're going to select the model, we're going to machine. I'm going to select this part here as 1. And as soon as I do that, I get the origin showing up, the G54, 5, 6, whatever you want to call it. Now, I always use select Z axis, plane axis. So I'm going to click that one. And then the first thing it's going to look for is the Z axis. And that's, I'm going to select that face. And then the next thing is the X axis. And I'm going to select a vertical line like that. And of course, it's the wrong way. So I'm going to flip it. That's how I want that. And then I'm going to select my pickup corner. What in this case, I'm going to do that right there. So this is going to be pickup on setup 3 that I'm creating right now. Lars is setup 3. This is where we're going to pick this part up here. I'm going to hit OK to that. Okay. Now we're going to spin this thing around and we're going to do a setup on this part over here. So we're going to go over to this part down here. And we're going to do the exact same thing. So repetition is the key to all learning. I'm going to go ahead here and say the model is going to be this part. And we're going to again use select Z direction. And the Z direction is going to be this. And my X direction is going to be along there. And it's the wrong way. I'm going to flip it. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to select this time. Let's select down here. I don't know why I'm going to do that, but it's just different. All right. So we have 2 setups. We have setup 3. If I click on that one and make that one active, we can't really see it. But that's the one we set over here, right? And then there's number 4 we just created. And where's that one? That is down here. All right. Check this out. If I now go down here and I select sync view with active setup, whoop, it moved around like that, the whole model, and we'll see that setup 4 with the Z direction up. So now it is ready to program. What do you think happens when I activate setup 3? Hold on. Here you go. Whoop. There is setup 3. So what is happening here is that whatever setup you're selecting, it's moving the view around to whatever area you're spinning. So you can't actually see this, but it's actually spinning kind of like the model around because these two are sitting on opposite of each other. So if I go down and turn it back off, so now it's not going to do it, you'll see we have one sitting there and now the other one sitting there. So this, I mean, if you have a tombstone, or if you had like a fixture with all kinds of parts on it and all kinds of setups, this is super, super handy to go ahead and use this one. Now, the next one is, I'm not going to turn it on because if I turn it on, there's a warning coming with this one. Like I said, great power, great responsibility. This one here, when you turn this one on, it will make visible what is in the active setup. So before you turn it on, make sure that you have selected what you want for that setup. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go to setup 3 and make that one active. And I'm going to go back into our edit our setup here where we were before setting all up. Now we've selected this body as the body that we wanted to machine for setup 1. We could potentially also think that this body should be included, right? We can add multiple bodies in here. So now we have 2 bodies. You can do that. But you can also select fixture parts. And this can be very handy to say, well, you know what? I need these jaws here to be selected in here too, because I want to make sure that I don't hit something. Or maybe you also say, you know, because we know how it is when you're machining things like this one here, you're machining in from the side. You might choose to, I'm a little bit afraid of these over here when I'm machining that hole. So you can add whatever you want in here. I'm just going to hit OK to that. I'm going to go down to setup 4. Now setup 4 is all the way over here. So over on 4, we might have other preferences. So I'm going to go in and edit that setup. And on this one, I'm going to just leave this part. I'm not going to select that. But I'm going to go into the fixture. And again, I'm just going to select the kind of the same thing I did on the other one. But this time I'm going to select this plate. I'm going to select the tombstone, and I'm going to select the top cap and the eye up here that it gets lifted up on. So I'm just selecting a couple of different things. Now here comes the crazy thing about this. I go down here and I turn on sync visibility with the active setup. It only now going to show, with that checked, what is accessible with that setup. What means that now when I go to setup 3, then you will see that it will show the fixtures because I had selected that. Actually, it doesn't select the parts. It just selects whatever the fixtures are. But you see in this one here, it has the parts in here because I selected those. But on this one here, it only had that one part that I had selected in there. So this is a way that it will turn on and off. Now, the reason that this comes with a little bit of a warning is that to turn all the parts back on, you actually have to go ahead, turn this off, as far as I understand. And then you actually will have to go in here to your tree, and now you're going to have to turn them all back on manually. So you can't go in here. See, now it's stuck in here too. So you got to know, you can multi-select. Select this one, hold down shift, select here, and then turn on visibility, show hide, like that. But you're going to have to go in and turn them all back on again when you're done with this. And it only sits here in the cam system. So again, if I go to setup, so if I go to setup 2, let's see what happens when I turn it on now. Then it just gives us that. Setup 3 gives us that. Setup 4 gives us that. So this is a way to kind of filter down. Oh, setup 1, only this one. So this is a way to kind of filter down what you want to show. This one here takes a little bit of figuring out what all kind of like is stitched together. So my tomb assembly here was kind of fixed together. That's why it didn't show up exactly how I maybe had planned that. All right, let's wrap this video up with one of the last things that I think is super cool. Let's go to setup number 2. So in setup number 2 here, you maybe have already noticed it. If I click on here, you will see that we get the toolpath. Well, have you noticed that they now have added eyes where you can turn on and off all the different tool paths. So you can just have them on there if you want to, or you can easily hide them again. That to me, it's just again one of these small things when you're working inside of CAM all day long trying to program parts, to be able to turn these things on and off and work with those, that is super, super important. That was like 10 things, folks, that the development team have been working on. Don't forget about all those different camp samples you can find out here. Hit the house. That'll bring you out to your main area, and you will see there's all different kinds in here, including designing samples, basic training. But this CAM examples in here, this is a great way to go in and learn on some of these different things, how they're done. The Fusion Academy classes are in here. There's some really, really cool things in here too to dive into and learn from. I hope that was useful. Some really great features in here, some really great new stuff. I'm kind of happy that I dived into this. I hope this was useful to you too. Don't forget, if you think this video was good, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, hit it, smash it. Give it that thumbs down. Leave me a comment. I love to hear from you. And down in the description area, you will find a link to go and email me. And again, thank you. I'm going to give the credit to Tim, Paul, and Angelo, two great guys for the work they have done with the Haas demo datasets. So with that, and anybody else that I didn't give credit to, sorry. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you so much, folks. Take care.